Welcome to the Recruitment Business Accelerator Podcast. Creating a successful recruitment business is not about you being the best hands-on biller or driving most of the activity for your team. It's about you becoming the best strategist, marketer, and leader so that you can create a powerful business that grows quickly and does not depend on you. For the last 10 years, Nicky Coffin and Katy Green have been advising recruitment business owners just like you to do exactly that. If you want to grow your business by 20% to 250% in 6 months or less, half your hours, and build a powerful recruitment business that doesn't depend on you, keep listening. If you want it faster, visit centeredexcellence.co.uk/apply. Here's Nicky and Katy.
Hi guys, and welcome to episode number 7 of our Recruitment Business Accelerator podcast. So we are very, very pleased to be here as always. We feel very grateful that we're able to bring these live podcasts to you. So if you're watching on Facebook live screen, please press hi, type hi in the box. Any questions you've got, put those in the comments below. The live stream feed. Also, if you are listening to us, it's likely that this is a recording from the Facebook live stream. So if you do want to listen to this live in the future, what you just need to do is to head on over to our Facebook group, Recruitment Business Accelerator, and just apply to come in, because it is done on an invite only. But as long as you're a recruitment business owner, a manager, a director in recruitment, that this Facebook group is set up for you, and you want to get better results from your team, better results from yourself, and learn some really cool top tips and strategies in terms of scaling up your recruitment business, then this is a very cool Facebook group to be part of. Or you can head on over to our YouTube channel, which is called Centered Excellence, where you can watch the recording on these podcasts too. So welcome, Katy, good to see you.
Hey. Good afternoon. I nearly said good morning. It's afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Great to have you with us.
So this week, Katy and I, we'd literally just come off the back of our fantastic Rockstars retreat, where we were really lucky to be working alongside Dr Hannah Macleod, who was a GB gold medalist Olympian in the Rio 2016 Olympics. And we asked her to actually come and do some work with us, because what they achieved with the GP hockey team in the Rio 2016 was almost nothing short of a miracle. And there were some really, really cool things that she shared with us on how they took the team from a significantly underperforming team to basically be champions of the world. So what we thought you guys might find useful is if we share our key takeaways from the session that Hannah did with us, but more importantly, actually, what those mean for us in the world of recruitment, how you can implement them quickly to increase your team's performance and create a top performing world-class culture. So when Hannah started speaking, one of the things I didn't realise was, I think, where the GP hockey team had come from to what they'd actually achieved. And she said when they'd come off the back of coming third in the 2012 Olympics, but prior to that, they actually were pretty much non-existent in world hockey. I think they were like 11th out of 12th in the world. And they were given some significant funding from Sport England to basically, because they had a really good, probably the biggest hope of winning gold for a team event. So they were given a lot of funding. And that was before the 2012 and London Olympics. But what happened was they basically, they lost in the semi-finals, which I think really knocked them backwards significantly. And so after that failure, in inverted commas, they had to properly look at how do we pick ourselves up and rebuild to go for the next 4 years. And one of the things they knew that was they were never ever going to beat Holland on skill. So they actually made the decision, and this is really quite a cool thing. They made the decision to become the best team in the world. But the most important thing is that all that we had to do was to deliver on our strengths, the things that we were good at on a day-to-day basis, and become absolutely expert in those things, versus having to pull the best game out of the bag of their lives on a certain day. And that's where they'd been focusing on for the London 2012 Olympics. And what they also found off the back of that significant failure was where they come third, they've been focusing on the outcome versus actually focusing on the process. And so what do I mean by that? So in their world, when they came third, they were just focused on winning the gold medal. So everything was driven around the end result, winning the gold. And actually, they even called their approach gold. And all they were focused on was that outcome. And they were focused on the fact they had to have the game of their lives in order to, but they would have had to have done that for every single match, throughout that competition. And there were things outside their control that happened that influenced, and they didn't win. And she said the biggest mistake was that we focused on the outcome rather than the process. And Katy, like we see this a lot in recruitment, don't we, where people who will set like a financial target, or they set a goal to sell the business, and put all of their efforts into that outcome.
Definitely. And what happens, I think, in the world of recruitment is, and what can happen for recruitment business owners, is their outcome they mix the purpose with their outcome. So they set a goal, a financial figure as a goal, but that they think is their purpose, when actually their real purpose is about something way, way deeper than that, in terms of what value that business is bringing to their customers, why they're, if you like, why they're there, what is it that they are looking to do? What's their underlying purpose for that business and for their customers? And so when you focus on that profit, and that's the only number that you're focusing on, you actually miss, you miss the journey, you miss all the things around that, that actually are what the enjoyment comes from, because the journey is not the outcome. The journey is about making those steps each day, and how you deliver to your customers, and how you inspire and change lives in the world of recruitment. So I think you're right. For us, we see it a lot with business owners, particularly when we start working with people, which is they wonder why they set a goal, and then they get to that goal, or they haven't got to that goal, and then there's they see it as total failure. But also they're so focused on that figure that they're actually missing the purpose of why they're doing that journey. And it's the purpose, a purpose-driven business that actually will be the most successful. Because when you base that on your behaviors on a day-to-day basis of why is it that I'm coming to work, what is it that I'm doing, when that purpose is strong and that's aligned with something way, way bigger than a financial outcome or a figure, that's when people will move mountains to go the extra mile, to serve that client, to, go and find that candidate that actually could be the right candidate, to make sure that client gets the best experience from that business. So
it's almost like if everything you're focusing on is money focused, then that you will encourage a certain type of behavior.
Right. Exactly.
As well.
Exactly.
And there's so many people that we've met who they come to us and like their sole purpose is to scale the business up to sell it, because they've become so disillusioned over the years, and they're so keen to get out of this business or get something back from the years of effort and pain that they put into it. They actually just want to sell it, and all they're focused on is the money. And that's almost like, I can retire when I've got that money in the bank, or I can live the life of my dreams when I've sold the business. And what we are saying here is, actually no, like the actual joy comes from the journey, but so many people are trying to speed, to get to that end result, that financial result, as quickly as possible. They miss the point about focusing on the journey. And I mean, so the thing to do with this, and Simon Sinek, some of you listening will have come across his work. If you haven't, I would really recommend checking him out on YouTube. He's got a really cool YouTube video which is called Starting With Your Why. He's got a book which is called Starting With Your Why. And this looks at, once you get really clear on why you are doing what you're doing, it's like why your business exists, simply beyond making a profit or achieving an outcome goal, then this is where things can really become much more enjoyable. But this is where you start to create a culture of which people want to belong to. And it's like your purpose for being. And the thing about having a purpose and having a really strong why you're doing it is it's like you never ever really get there. You can just keep getting better and better and better and better, and you start to create something that people really love. They want to be part of. They're proud of being part of, and you build a community, you build a team that loves what they're doing. And that starts with getting really clear on what's your why. So if you haven't got a clear idea of what your purpose is or why you're doing it, this would be the first place to start. And there's a couple of questions that we give our clients that helps you to crystallize it on this. And what I would say is, like, this is like step one of it. Sometimes it takes quite a long time to get really clear on, like, what is our purpose. We were speaking about this the other day, and it took me a good year and a bit of real soul searching and journaling and asking sort of quite deep questions about, like, what's our purpose, what's my purpose. And anyway, so these questions will start to sort of flush this out. So the first question would be, what is the purpose of your business? Why is it in existence? Who do you impact? What is the difference that you make to your clients, your candidates, your team, the community, the world on a bigger approach? And who do you serve? And what is the impact, or what will the input look like when you've achieved your purpose? What's the difference that you will bring or make to your clients, your candidates, your community, your world? Are there any other questions, Katie, that you would add in?
It is about what's the difference that you make to that community? So what do they get? What do you give, or what do they get from it? How do you support them to move themselves to a better position? So how do you serve them, and what is that difference that you make? I would say,
the Great Britain Hockey's purpose, or their why, was to be the difference, to create history, and to inspire the future. And so, Hannah was talking about when you are having to get up for training, it's raining outside, it's cold in February, actually knowing that you're doing that to create history makes a very, very compelling reason to get out of your bed and get training. And in terms of inspiring the future, so she talked about going training and then actually going and speaking to local schools, inspiring the future and future hockey players. And the reason that they were wanting to win the gold was way beyond just themselves. It was actually to inspire a legacy and to inspire the future. And she said it's things like that which were really, really deep-seated drivers for doing everything on a day-to-day basis.
And I think you're right in what you're saying there, because one of the things I took from what she was talking about was, it was interesting because they spent 14 hours having that discussion in a room to come up with that, and it was about tweaking that, and they instilled it to 3 things. But what she was saying was there was one of those key elements for her that meant the most, which was to be the difference. But for one of her other colleagues, it might have been that inspire the future. So it's you don't have to necessarily, not every single one. If you've got a team and you create your values around that, which you create with your culture, as long as that one of those individuals can link in strongly to one of those as part of their purpose, then again, it works for the team. Because different people, different teams have different strengths, and they're bringing different things to the team. So it's about how that culture is then created in those behaviours and lived and breathed for them.
Yeah, and so then that, I mean, so once you've got your why, it's how do we want to be living and breathing, and the values on a day-to-day basis that are most important to create that culture that will then, you know, achieve that why. And this is where, and so like values are basically fundamental beliefs that guide or motivate attitudes and actions. So they will describe the personal qualities we choose to embody to guide our actions. It's the sort of person that we want to be, and the manner in which we treat ourselves and others and our interaction with the world around us. And it's, you know, you'll see, I went on holiday recently and we flew with Jet2, and I said to Katy coming back off it, that is probably one of the first times I've ever felt totally looked after and loved by everybody as part of that business. And what a great, you know, I mean, they're a low budget airline, but what a great experience I had. And that was because of the way that team behaved, how they were proactive in terms of looking after us. But it wasn't just one person. It was like, we must have interacted with 50 or 60 people that morning. It's just, and that's the type of thing when a client comes into your business, or a candidate comes in to work with all your team members, how they interact on a day-to-day basis, like knowing that they can come into any one of you and they will get a level of experience and behavior from everybody. That's what can make you really stand out absolutely from the crowd. So values are absolutely crucial. They're like the lifeblood that flows through your business.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. It's our daily, it is, isn't it? It's our daily actions. What do we do on a day-to-day basis that defines who we are and what we stand for? So when, you know, a client experiences anybody from your receptionist through to yourself, that they get that consistent behavior and they have that same experience with you, but also that it means something to them. And, you know, what kind of words do they think about that represents your brand? When they experience your brand, what is it that they're saying about your brand? And a really good way for you to perhaps reflect back on, okay, what do I want? If you haven't got values already in your business, then think of a brand where you get a great experience. So think of somewhere where you've experienced an amazing brand and that you go back to that brand time and time again. And then ask yourself, so what is it about their service? What is it about the experience that I get from that brand that makes me feel the way that I do? So for example, let's say, I don't know, you go to a particular place, maybe you like Prep Coffee, or maybe you go to a hairdresser's to have your hair done. So what is it about the experience that the hairdresser gives you, or that restaurant gives you, that's your favorite restaurant, that you don't get in any other restaurant? Because, you know, I don't know, whoever it is at the door to greet you, and then they, you know, take you to your favorite table, and you're always given an extra after 8 minutes afterwards, or whatever those touches might be. These are like magical touches that your brand gives to your customers that other people won't be.
And so that's so true, Katy. And like, so if you're looking at doing this within your business, first thing is to say, right, what does excellence look like? You know, so if we were a 10 in our world, being absolutely the best that we could be, what does that look like? What are the behaviors that we would see our team doing, our people doing on a day-to-day basis? And what do your values look like in action? So I'm going to give you one of the examples from you know, the GB Hockey, and one of their values was that we are one team, because they wanted to be the best team in the world, and then they knew that they couldn't achieve what they wanted to as an individual, and they also couldn't do it just purely on skill, because it didn't have the level of skill as the main competition has. But we are one team. But what did that actually mean in a day-to-day basis? So it seems like we respect each other, we accept differences, it's okay to listen, you don't always have to talk. We belong to one team. I've got your back, you've got mine. We stand in this bubble together. We belong forever. There's no bullshit. There are no excuses. I'm connected to you. We wear the same kit. We're tight. We talk to each other. We share with each other. We stamp out fires early. Talk to me. Listen to me. Share the load. Together we have strength. We are one team. So if you think about this on a day-to-day basis, like and so you've got a team of people, and you've got an issue where you might have a candidate that's got multiple offers from different consultants in your team. But if one of your values is that candidate always comes first, our interest is always to make sure the candidate gets the absolute best job and the best match for them, irrespective of what the fee is or whose target it's going to go on. The most important thing is for our candidates to come first. And that was one of the values that we had in our business. We never had any issues or any arguments about whose split was what. It was always what's the best thing for our candidate. And we had a really, really great team ethos, because we shared in each other. And Katie, like one of your values is we are one. We are
more together. So everything evolved around how we work together. So how do we work together internally as a team? How do we work together externally with our customers? So every time a situation occurred, and probably similar to you in terms of what you're saying, whether that was a candidate situation, a client situation, or an internal team situation, then we would apply our values. So we'd say, okay, if we're being more together, what's the action? What is the outcome that we want out of this? And then what are our behaviors or actions that will drive that outcome, so that we ensure that we are working more together? And it became a really powerful mantra in our business that, you would just hear people saying all the time, well, that's not more together. You can't actually do that, or that is more together. And what happens is your team actually start managing themselves. And this is one of the things that Hannah touched on in the power of that team she was talking about, which is, the players. She said, if there was a point in which the coach had to get involved, then actually we'd let ourselves down, because as a team, it was up to us to manage ourselves. So if somebody was late for training, that wasn't acceptable in our code of conduct or under our values. And this can really, when you get the values, when you have values that are lived and breathed and in the blood of your people, this is exactly what you will see created within your own world, within your team. And it's so powerful when your team are empowered and are kind of self-managing, really managing themselves, just based around their actions and their behaviors.
Yes. So, and we would really advise you have this within your team environment. And so one of the ways that we did this was to pull key people from all teams into a brainstorming session, at all levels, from top down. So it wasn't just like the leadership team saying, like, this is what you must do. This is from all levels. And we asked, what does excellence look like for us? And then, what are the behaviors that we want to see happening? And also what worked well for us was what the behaviors that we didn't like. So like people turning up late, or, not wearing appropriate clothing, or, some of the way that you'd speak to each other on a day-to-day basis. We broke down stuff that we didn't like, and we flipped that actually. So what would we want to see instead? And similar to the England setup, there's no bullshit and there's no excuses. I mean, you can see how that would play out really well on a day-to-day basis. There's never any excuses. I'm going to be solutions focused. We call it being at core. So, but you want to distill it into no more than I would would say no more than 7, but probably between 3 and 5, core values. But more specifically, what does that mean on a day-to-day basis? And then we talked about this on one of the other podcasts, where it's actually that, how do we bring that into our service? You know, even like the way that you might answer the phone.
Yeah.
How do you you bring that literally so that it becomes just a way of being within your business? So think about it from internal, team, clients, candidates, and even the, you know, suppliers. How do you want your suppliers to think of you and interacting with them? So then the next thing is all of this is very good, the purpose, the values, but if you've got to be able to lead yourself before you can actually lead others. So if you're not being the change, if you're not living these values and behaviors on a day-to-day basis, then I guaranteed your team won't. And so the place we always start with this place, it's like looking at who do I need to become, or how do I need to start behaving in order to become the best authentic person, you know, the best sort of form of me that I can be on a day-to-day basis. And so this is absolutely key. And you know, it's important to look at stuff that you do well, but also what are the things that you do that aren't so good. And this is where you've got to be quite brave to ask your colleagues, like, you know, what do I do that really either disempowers you or pisses you off, you know, that I may be not even aware of. We call it like your blind spot. But you know, so you need to identify like what are my characteristics when I'm at my best. How do I show up for my teammates? How do I show up for my business? And then what triggers your bad moods? What triggers you that forces, you know, creates behavior that you don't particularly like, or you know that it's not good for the business? And then what do you need to do to get back on track? So we're quite lucky, I think, Katie, because we talk very openly about, but there's been times where we've had some quite tricky conversations, but we've basically said we have to do that. If we can't have these tricky conversations, then how can we expect our clients to do that? And it's about being brave and knowing that it's not personal. It's about making us better.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, I certainly got that from what Hannah was talking about. In one of the strengths of that team was it was all about our purpose. So it linked to our purpose rather than being about me as an individual and me taking it as an emotional reaction to something. So it was very clear on, and in fact, you know, she was saying about the purpose. The team is bigger than the purpose, if you like, or the team becomes the purpose. And you know, we often don't want to look in the mirror at our negatives or our areas, you know, that can be developed. But actually, it's really important to focus in on those and to recognize those as much as, you know, our areas of strength and our super strengths. And
it's about self-awareness, isn't it? It's about how that impacts others. So if I'm need to become the best leader I can be, best leaders are very self-aware of how they impact other people. And if you want people to follow you and you want people to trust you and you want to inspire others, then you need to know how you can make other people feel with some of the behavior that is not empowering. Because and the reason why I said about that there is one of the things that I think certainly we do in the West is we focus on our areas of development, the areas that we're not strong on, and actually that's not the best way to do it, I don't think. And we talk about, so for us, I think makes much more sense to look at what are we strong at, what are our strengths, and how can we develop our strengths and focus on those rather than spending a ton of time developing our areas of weakness. Because if you develop your areas of weakness, you might be able to increase them by 10 or 15 or 20%. But if you focus purely on your strengths and you became a super duper at those, you would see significant results beyond that. So, and I think, and Hannah spoke about this, about owning your strengths. So she said, you know, for her, she was very, very good at sort of distributing the ball to others. And, you know, she wasn't necessarily, even though she played up front, she didn't score any goals, but she would put the scorers the ball to those that could score, and that was her role. She was a very, 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 very good at that. And so she owned that, rather than getting disappointed that she hadn't scored the goals. Actually, I'm owning that skill level, and that's what I'm going to become a master at and become the best in the world at. And then vice versa, the other team members knew exactly where their strengths were and how those interlinked, and with the other team members, put those all together, and you have a high performing team. And we talk about this in you know, with the 360 model, which is looking at one person being excellent at everything, which is totally unrealistic, and it's just not fit for purpose. Actually, if you really looked at what you were strong at and most in flow at, there'd be certain segments of the 360 that you were, whether it's BD or whether it's delivery, whether it's resourcing, or whether it's 2 out of those 3, you'd be better focusing on getting really great at those, and then marrying up with somebody who's really great at the other parts that you don't like doing, or you're maybe not as good at doing, because adding those 2 or 3 people together, you've then got your super team. So the question here is, like, what are your super strengths? What are the things that you do naturally really, really well? And these are things that when you're doing them, you feel really energized. You definitely feel really in flow. People will notice in you, actually, that you're really good at this. And sometimes it's difficult to notice this yourself because you do it so naturally. So one of the exercises that we did in the Rockstars group, which I thought was really useful, I found it really useful. We got each member to say, like, what's your superpower? And we did a secret squirrel. Between sort of however many people were in the group, you can start to see there's patterns that you might know that you're aware of, patterns that you might not be aware of. So this is a really cool thing to do with your leadership team, yourself personally. Like, what do you see as my superpower? And then how can I do that more on a day-to-day basis? You know, how can I get rid of the stuff that I shouldn't be doing? I either delegate, outsource, stop doing it, or hire somebody else to do that part of the job that I hate. So I'm then in flow at least sort of 70 or 80% of my time. So that was probably the other key takeaway from the event. So Katie, before we sort of sign off from today, anything else?
No, I think you're right. I think we've got it all. I think one of the big ones that stuck out for me was this being able to lead yourself before you lead others. And that really, really resonated. Because I think sometimes what recruitment business owners, what we can do is we can focus on the team and focus on, you know, whether they're delivering and how they're delivering that. And actually, we've got to go back to reflect on ourselves. If we have values in our business, if we have a purpose in our business, and we're not living and breathing that purpose and those values, then they won't come to life within the team. So the buck stops with you. And, you know, we have our saying, don't we, be the change, which is essentially, you know, a similar sort of thing in terms of what we're saying, which is, you know, you have to take responsibility for yourself, and you have to start putting the mirror up and actually looking and saying, how am I leading? How am I setting the tone for this business? And how am I making sure that, you know, together as a team, we are directing in the right direction? Because even if you're not, you know, you're not billing, you're not that person within the team that's creating the billing, you set the tone, you set the pace.
And the thing about this is your business is a mirror of what's going on in your head. So if you are seeing stuff externally that you do not like the look of, you need to change it within you, and then watch what changes externally without you even having to do something, even without sometimes having to take action. Make the change within and watch what happens externally. So it all starts with you. So I hope those snippets have inspired some, right, okay, I need to get my shit sorted. I need to step up, actually really get clear on like what's working from a leadership perspective for my team, what are the areas that actually I do need to tweak, and then start to think, you know, pulling the team together. Why are we here? What is our purpose? What are the ways that we want to behave on a day-to-day basis? And those are really fundamental things that would make a big difference, big shift. And then obviously it's a matter of making sure that's then implemented and followed through, but you will see a big shift off the back of that. Cool.
Definitely.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so
very
much for listening, and we will see you next week on our podcast. Cheerio.
See you later, guys.